Good evening. Welcome to Wednesday Night Coaching. I'm your host, Pete O'Hara, and we have with us James Port. He's here to talk about last night's game. So tell us all about it.
Oh, very kind of the introduction as always, Pete. But yeah, great game last night. If you didn't catch it, St Mary's got the win. Been struggling for form recently, but they powered through this last game and done an excellent performance. The star striker's been out for a while. First game back, they get the winner. Fantastic story.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see, it was a great game. The crowd absolutely loved it, didn't they?
It was electric. The atmosphere
Yeah.
seemed amazing.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's amazing and great for the club, really. So
Yeah.
they can power on through
Really
for the rest
needed
of the
it.
season. Absolutely. But I think we can go quickly now. We got an interview with him last night.
Okay, yeah,
head of
yes,
the
we
coach
do.
down there for St Mary's, so we can pop down there, see that.
Let's go away.
We can analyse that later.
Well, I'm joined here with Coach James Port, and what an evening we had today. Some great skill on display, and eventually you got away with all 3 points. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's fantastic to get those 3 points back on the board. You've been struggling with form recently, but getting that win, getting over that game line, fantastic. It's going to help wonders for the team, and hopefully we can push on and build from that, really.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And big headline story, your star striker out for a long time, but back tonight. And from an outside point of view, big impact on the team. Tell us a bit about that whole journey and the process of getting them back on the pitch and back in the firing line and hit the ground running, really.
Yeah, of course, being a star striker, want to have them on the pitch. They're scoring goals, winning us games, and clearly showing tonight that's what happens. But yeah, it's been a tough journey. Been a long journey. Been weird injuries, to be honest. Like, been with an ankle injury, physios and strength and conditioning coach been working really hard with them. Got them back to fitness, got them back to pass all the return to play protocols. Looking great. Go out for 10 minutes of training, back in the physio room. Doesn't want to work on the ankle anymore. Doesn't feel like it's right. So, it's been very difficult. We couldn't quite work out what was going on, but backroom staff have been really helpful. Thought for more stuff and went for a different approach, psychological approach, for some distraction. Started getting the ball involved into their rehab sessions to distract the player from the ankle. And I'll be honest, since they started that, life changing that has been for the player. It came back strong after that, and came back quickly, much quicker than it was before, because we were lost, didn't know what to do about that. So yeah, credit to the backroom staff for that one.
Amazing.
Really.
So, well, you heard it here first. We'll get the exclusives tomorrow night in the studio. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, thanks for that. All the best, yeah.
And you.
Catch you soon.
Wow, some really good points there, actually. Really interesting.
Yeah.
Would you like to go into a bit more detail about that, to kind of give the viewers a bit more in-depth analysis on that?
Yeah, absolutely, of course. Star striker, back at the start of the season, had an ankle injury, kept on the sideline for a couple of weeks, as most ankle injuries are. But when they were going through that return to play protocol, the physios were clearing them from all like pain sort of areas and like range of movement and stuff, and could go through the return to play protocols, which the player was passing, getting back onto the training pitch. And from what the coach was saying there, they'd be on the training pitch for 10 minutes, would go straight back into the physio room just because it didn't feel right on the ankle. And there was those sort of issues going on, and it took a while for them to kind of wonder why that's not working. Why aren't the protocols actually indicating that she is returned to play rather than not? So there is an issue there, but so they've worked through it.
So would they kind of reflect on that to kind of change the process or add to it or kind of assess it? Is there like a reflection process for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So they go through a reflection process where they just kind of strip it down to its raw form. So go step by step almost, or work in reverse. Sometimes they like to work that way. So what's working? Why is it working? And then what's not working, and why is it not working? And what are other approaches that could go through there? So clearly the pain around the ankle isn't there, range of movement's there, so that's good. That is working. So they know they've got that kind of foundation there. They've done what they can do in that physio room to be like, right, they can go back onto the pitch now. So what's going on with this? It's the other thing. So why, when they get back onto the pitch, on the training pitch, they're coming straight back in again? I'm not sure why that is. So it's just stripping it back down again and kind of reflecting over that whole rehab. Was anything that was missed? Ticking all the boxes to make sure there's not another underlying issue. But in this case, there wasn't.
Okay, yeah. And, devil's advocate here, but, pros and cons. There's a lot of pros, but are there consequences of this or cons to this style of treatment?
Yeah, well, of course. So, like the coach was saying, they put a lot of pressure on the backroom staff, that star striker needs to be back playing to score the goals to win the game. So when they're not back playing, but the physio is going up to them, or the strength and conditioning coach going up to the manager and being like, yeah, they're fully fit, but in training, the manager's only seen them getting back in after 10 minutes. So they're putting a lot more pressure on them to be like, why aren't you doing your job correctly? Why isn't this working? So they kind of need to, that is the consequence to it. And of course, it's going to take another mental toll on the player as well.
Yeah, of course,
if you can't give them a straight answer, being like, this is why it's not working for you, then they're going to be frustrated with that too.
Yeah.
And they don't quite understand the ins and outs of it. They might think something's drastically wrong with them when it's just an ankle sprain, but they're thinking oh God, there's something else going on here. So those are the consequences of it really, and what can go wrong.
Yeah, and you speak there on the manager, Mr. Port, getting a bit impatient with the players. So would you say there's an alternative way to do it, but keeping the same kind of elements of the process?
Yeah, well, absolutely. If you won't go back to the interview there, he mentioned the psychological approach.
Yeah.
So they clearly had gone through that mental approach to start, or physical approach to start with, beg your pardon there. Yeah. So going through like all the return to play protocols, the strength side of things, the range of movement, and that was all fine. But hadn't really put much emphasis on the psychological effects. What is that player actually feeling? Is it a mental side of things? And that's why there's no trust in it, there's no confidence in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be the alternative route, is to look at it from both point of views, because as we all know, injuries aren't just physical, they are mental as well. So you've got to approach it both ways. But some players might require more mental than physical, and vice versa. It's only when you get the player in front of you and you kind of go through all the phases, you're not going to know the answers.
Yeah, really interesting that. So what's kind of been learned? What are we learning from these kind of, groundbreaking new rehab treatment processes?
Yeah, no, of course, there's going to be a lot of learning done involved, especially around this sort of topic, because, if that's the player's first injury, or the first time they dealt with this player being injured, they're not necessarily going to know how they receive the treatment sort of thing. So
yeah, very true.
They can go through all the physical motions quite easily, quite comfortably, but that mental side of things, that kind of like mental block to it, or the confidence level, especially in this scenario where the player's been out for 4 months even, so they're sidelined for a long time, that's taken a mental toll. They're turning up to training, they're seeing all their teammates train, and they can't get involved. So that's going to take an effect on it. And there's been a few studies done on this as well. So, positive mindset and readiness increases the return to sport. So if you've got high focus on that, that really emphasizes them getting back to playing as well. And also it's been used to use self-distraction, to focus on the positive things rather than the negative things. And using that can make a good impact on coming back to play. So, especially in that confidence side of things, when they were struggling with that, psychological support is more important the longer term an injury is. So the fact they've been out for 4 months, that psychological support is going to be more of an emphasis on there as well. And I think what they learned particularly here is they used that second comment I made on that study about the distraction. They brought a football involved into their rehab sessions. Of
course, yeah.
So got them standing on one leg, but heading the ball back or pass it back off one leg. So there was that distraction of like, this is the football, I need to focus on this. And they're kind of ignoring at their ankles there almost, and building that up slowly, making it, starting off very controlled and progressing it further and further and further until they gain that confidence back. And like we saw last night in the game, they got back onto the pitch and scored the winner. I think that's why it's so important to build a good rapport around the team as well. So not only are you just dealing with the players when they're injured or when they're needing assistance getting fitness back, if you can build that rapport up from the start and know that they're going to be, how they kind of act, how they talk, are they an emotional person, are they a bit more closed off, and how they kind of deal in that sort of scenario. And if you can learn how that player is individually, I think as a therapist or as a coach going forward, you know them personally, then you'll know them better in the rehab side of things and know what they will want from it and how they'll focus on that and how they'll really grow from those sort of situations.
All about knowing the individual. That's all the time we've got for tonight.
We could talk about this for hours, couldn't we?
Exactly. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you very much.
I've been your host, Pete O'Hara. This is Wednesday Night Coaching. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Good night.